All right, everybody, finishing up some technical stuff real quick, and then we'll be on in just 1 second. Sorry about the late start. This timer is not accurate. We'll be starting sooner than 14 minutes, I promise. All right, let's see here. That's good. That's good. All right. And here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Sorry for the late start. Had a few technical difficulties. Gang, I'm super excited today. On the show, we have Neal Fischer. He is a producer. He's a buddy. And actually, we're going to start off with that because I was trying to remember where exactly we met when we first started. But like, you've seen his work. If you are a fan of video games and a fan of movies, you've seen stuff he's had a hand in. He ran Davis Films for 13 years, and he was there for Resident Evil. He was there for Silent Hill. The U.S. branch. The U.S. branch. You guys can't hear him yet, but I'm going to bring him on right meow. So please welcome, without further ado. What's up, Neal?
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, dude.
As well as could be expected during a pandemic.
I know it's the last year or so, like solid 12 months have been. Because I mean, it started in March, right? Like that was when, actually.
Well, yeah. I
when
mean, okay.
was...
I mean, so all right. So I kind of had my last meeting at the end of February of last year, but I'm also, I used to live in Japan, and I'm a little bit, maybe a little more self-aware when it comes to those kind of things. So I started kind of self-quarantining myself the very end of February last year. So by March 3rd, so by this time last year, I wasn't leaving. I had migrated all my work to home.
Okay.
I had already, I tend to live, since I make a lot of zombie survival movies and whatnot, I tend to live in preparedness anyway. So
Right.
my goal was really just to convince, make sure that my parents and my girlfriend were prepared for what I thought was going to come. So, I'm like, all right, have, 2 or 3 months worth of food and water, and, don't go excessive, but, and
Yeah.
I had my parents wearing masks, around this time last year. So
I remember because Eric and I, my buddy Eric and I were working for Norse Foundry at PAX East, and the dates for 2020 were the 27th to March 1st. Yeah, it's been, because I remember hearing, like, I remember hearing whispers about it happening, like in China, and it was okay, like that's, so it was in the back of my mind, and then like I was hearing
the whispers
that it was hitting hard. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, the whispers, we started hearing a little bit about it in December.
And it's, right, yeah, in December. But like I was hearing talk of it, like cases were showing up in Seattle and everything, and I was supposed to, like, we got done with PAX East March 1st. I came home, not Nam. What's the damn it? What's the convention in Vegas? Wait a minute, they had a show.
What, Origins?
No, it's not Origins. It's a trade show for that's on the tip of my brain. It's a trade show, like it's for tradespeople to go. Like Norse was going there to try and sell to other markets, like to get into brick and mortar stores with their product, because they're a dice company, and they went there.
Okay, yeah,
the following week, and it was in the middle of the week, and then Emerald City Comic-Con was the next weekend, which I was supposed to go to. That fell off. Like they're like, we're closing Emerald City. That's not happening. And then I had like 10 gigs fall out in the next 10 days because everybody was like, we're canceling.
Yeah.
Including like just stage stuff that was happening. BrickCon, DiceCon, Brick and DiceCon. No, that's not it, Ken. No, it's a. Damn it! It's right on the tip of my brain. Anyway, it's. If Eric was here, he'd know. But so anyway, so that all happened really fast. But yeah, it like March 1st is when all the work went away for me. So it's been almost a solid 12 months, a little bit over now. But yeah, no, I was thinking about it yesterday because you and I chatted a little bit just to catch up. Where exactly tip of your tongue con? That's a different con, Ken. That's a much different feel. Did we meet at Satine's?
I believe we met.
I was gonna say, did we meet at Satine's charity stream that she did at Meltdown?
I believe we met. I believe we met before that. We have several groups, several circles of friends that kind of interconnect. So, you know, one group of friends are my kind of my San Diego Comic-Con group.
Right.
And I believe we first met when I was promoting Sushi Girl. So that would have been in 2010 or right around there.
It might have been.
And I mean, I can't remember who, because we have so many friends that
I know,
that
yeah,
interlink. So I'm not sure which one.
Because I've seen you, like I've seen you at Comic-Con. I've seen you. I can't. I want to say it was Satine's thing because I was there kind of stage managing her shot.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a celebrity or guest player on it, and I also help produce, and volunteer depending upon what my work schedule was like and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was there because I remember you coming up to me at the Utilikills booth at Comic-Con and we're like,
yep.
Drew. I was like, hey, because I knew your face, but I couldn't place like Neal. I was like, yes, Neal Fischer, how are you? And that was I saw you there. I saw you at. Did we see each other at LA Comic-Con too? I think I was there helping promote my buddy's comic.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. We kind of ping-ponged all over the place from different events.
Yeah. So I was really close friends with or am friends with Yuka Kobayashi, and she was working for Stan Lee at the time. And so the plan was she and her team would bring Stan Lee to at the time it was called Kamikaze. It was the first year.
That's it. Yeah, Kamikaze.
And I with Sushi Girl was going to bring Mark Hamill and the whole Sushi Girl team. And so we, in those days, to be a legit con, you really needed to have both Mark Hamill and Stan Lee. If
right.
you had those two people, you were considered a legit con on the map. And so, and most cons take, years to get to that level. But obviously between me and Yuka and Regina and other people, we just brought, and so, yeah, so I'm a huge LA Comic-Con fan.
That's right. I'm remembering it now. Were they caught up in? I remember because Terry Crews was supposed to come to our booth because he was helping with but he wrote a book that my buddy made. But when there was some snafu with security, they were trying to get in. Like Terry Crews, Summer Glau was in this line. They weren't letting the VIPs land. So he was stuck in the car for almost 45 minutes, so he didn't have time to come to the booth to actually sign. He had to go right to his panel. But I remember him saying we finally got out. Summer Glau stepped out ahead of him out of her car, and she's like, well, that sucked, and walked past me. I was like, okay. And then Terry showed up and then took him. So yeah, I remember that snafu happening. That was one of the
Yeah, well,
That's one of the
the
things.
first, yeah. Now I wasn't part of the actual organizing of the convention. I just
Right, right,
was a huge supporter, and I love, I mean, I've been going to, San Diego Comic Con, you know, wow, since probably 2000, um, and obviously I went to lots of smaller conventions, all over the country. So I've been a huge, fan of kind of nerd cons since, since back in the, back before, back when they were just like really tiny.
right,
So, but yeah, I do know that the first 2 years, they were completely overwhelmed with, I mean, there's just certain expectations that a convention can have, and you prepare for, like let's say 30,000 or 40,000, and then 250,000 show up, and you're just kind of like, and they were just like, wow, happy that it happened, but yeah, the first 2 or 3 years they had massive growing pains because it was so much bigger than anyone could have expected. So, and I don't remember what those numbers were. I think the first year maybe was 80,000 or something like that, which is spectacular for a completely unknown first year con. And at that time, that was, like 2010 or 2000, 2009, 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. Yeah.
yeah. I was always I think my main con that I always go to has been Gen Con. I think I went there for my first time 2005, and then I skipped a year, and then I started coming back 2007 because that's when I bought my first utility kill was 2007. But and that was the
Wow.
I
You're
know.
aging me, brother.
I
my
I
my
just
my
I
first
just
Gen
turned
Con
40 on the
was
11th, so I hear you.
okay. Well, happy birthday. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
When
yeah. So my
when
first
was your
my
first Gen
first
Con?
Gen Con was, I think it was 1990 or 1991. Yeah.
Was it still in Milwaukee then, or was that before even that? Because I remember it's been
No,
in
it
Indy
was
for.
yeah, I mean I honestly can't remember because I've been to both, but I think it was already at Indy.
Okay.
I mean uh, I've gone sporadically to Gen Con, because it's, if something's local, it's easy for me to get to. But um, yeah, I mean, I went to Gen Con like 90, 91, 92, and then from there I went and lived in Japan. So there's no way to go to, you know go to a convention, from Japan. So yeah,
That's very true. How long were you in Japan?
I lived there for 4 years.
Okay.
I mean, I've been there on and off. I mean, I went twice. I did a summer program, before I graduated, and I did a short program. And obviously I visit friends and people that I consider family over there, every couple of years.
Okay.
So, but yeah, but the long stunt, I lived there for 4 years. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I want to say my first San Diego Comic Con, because I went there to work for Utilikilts, was I
Mm-hmm.
think 2014, and I've
Back,
gone there. I've gone there for
really,
several
that
different
was your
people since
first?
then. I think so.
Okay.
Um,
All right, then if that's the case, then we met first, at what was called Kamikaze at the time.
okay.
Yeah, because yeah, I'm pretty sure I met you around the time that I was starting to promote Sushi Girl, which would have been 2011, I think.
That's why I was thinking it might have been Satine's thing, but maybe it was Kamikaze, because I'm pretty sure my first year was 2014. I remember, man, I went there. I didn't know one of my very good friends now, Michael. He was the guy running the show, but like we didn't know each other, and they kind of grassroots everything whenever they do a show at a con. So we got
Mm-hmm.
an Airbnb, but we were sleeping on a boat at San Diego that was like ears throw down from It was like maybe a 5 to 10 minute drive up, like going south along the coast to get to the convention center. But like where we were next to, like, we showed up, we got settled, we did our first day for load and everything. We came back, and it turns out there was like a concert venue that was just down the beach, and like the Doobie Brothers were playing, and we got a pizza about the size of the boat itself. So we just were sitting on the back, like with our legs up, looking out at the ocean, listening to the Doobie Brothers, and eating this huge ass pizza. Like it was crazy.
Well, I do like the JB Brothers, so
So
I haven't heard that name in a while, but yeah.
yeah, it was like Doobie Brothers. I think Tori Amos was there one night. Like it was a long weekend, and they were like they packed the place. Was it Tori Amos? Yeah, yeah, I think it was Tori Amos. It's so long ago now in my head, even though it's not really that far. So Neal, let's talk a little bit about. Tell me a little bit about Davis Films, not to be mixed in there with Davis Entertainment, because that's a completely different company.
Correct. Yeah, there obviously there's unless you work in the industry directly with them, there can be some confusion. I worked for the producer Samuel Hadida, and who is we're co-owner with his brother of Metropolitan Film Export and Davis Films in France. So we had an American branch here in Los Angeles. And it was the office of Samuel Hadida and Davis Films. So they're kind of one and the same. So I basically ran Davis Films for roughly 13 years, and ran Samuel's office, and that was it was really just, when we were between films, it was me, an accountant, and a lawyer, and I was the primary person on the ground. I ran our mini studio, our set of offices or whatever, and I developed all of our properties. So the properties were things that you may have: Resident Evil, Imaginarium, Dr. Parnassus, Lucky Day, Solomon Kane. So we did a lot of those. We were also executive producers in most New Image Millennium films, such as The Expendables, Conan, Hellboy, all of those. So I would obviously give script notes on things that weren't in our actual production, and then I would develop things that we produce. Things that my heaviest workload are things that you haven't even seen yet, that are still in the pipeline somewhere, such as Vampire Hunter D, Wolfenstein, Crying Freeman. There's a House of Night, which is I don't know. I mean, it's a wonderful book series by a mother-daughter writing team,
Oh wow.
and it's fantastic. It's really fantastic. And again, it's like a lot of young adult novels that that are kind of set in the fantasy, magical, modern world. It's kind of like a cross between Harry Potter and Twilight. So if you took Harry Potter's main character and made it a female vampire with magical prodigy, that is, and then you're born a vampire, but it doesn't really come about until you're a teenager. So when it manifests, then all young vampire children are taken to schools, much like in the Harry Potter series. You're taken out, and you learn the ups and downs of being a vampire, and you're in like a boarding school. I mean, it's and there's flashbacks into historical vampires, kind of like in Anne Rice novels, where can go back. One of my favorite ones, obviously, because I like samurai and I like Vikings. So one of the stories, it goes back into the Viking era, and I love it. So,
Nice.
but that's unfortunately, my my boss, mentor, he's one of my best friends, Samuel Hadida, passed away suddenly about 2 years ago. And so I stayed with Davis Films for about a year to kind of, wrap up the things that I was doing and hand it back to them. And there was a big question on whether they would produce, Davis Films would continue kind of pioneering production, or whether it would more hand the reins to studios, because there's just some wonderful in their catalog of yes. My cat wants to join us. And so there's just a wonderful, I mean, it's a massive amount. There's more. I mean, they own the rights to more properties, than they can ever make, by themselves. And Samuel he's just he was just such an amazing producer, one of the top in the world. He was a larger than life character, and he truly loved the properties that he owned or was licensing. He truly loved them, and he wanted to be involved in every aspect of them. He wanted to talk to the directors and the production designers and everything. And so without Samuel, at that energy, leading the more, he decided more to basically partner with studios, and the studios then gonna be the primary vehicle, primary producers, on ground producers. They'll develop it the way the studio wants to develop it. So what Davis Films normally did is we would finance it ourselves, or initially we would finance them. So like Solomon Kane or Parnassus or Lucky Day, we would either finance the whole thing or finance initially, and then we would pick up partners and money for foreign distribution. And then once the film was made, then we would sell it. We would shop it around to studios here in the United States. When we were developing The Crow, obviously that was a bigger movie. We were financing it ourselves, and we, making a deal with Sony to distribute it, and Jason Momoa was going to be The Crow. So it's kind of bummed that fell apart, but that is Hollywood.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that was in the pipeline for a while, and I was super excited. That it was one of my favorite movies growing up. I loved the comic. I have one of the original trades of it. It's out there on my shelf right now. There was a bunch more that happened in that movie that I wasn't aware of. I was just watching. Wasn't Masters of Horror. It was behind the scenes talk. I want to say it was on Shudder, but they were talking about The Crow because of the show focused around things that happened on set, and the ghost cowboy, that's a character in the comic, but they built a full prosthetic.
Yep.
And he was going to be in it, but then they cut it out because of everything that had to change.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to see what was going to be happening with that when you were telling me about it, what exactly it would entail. But yeah, that was one of my favorite movies. I
mean, The Crow is actually the film. The Crow is one of the reasons that I am now working in Hollywood. It came out right like the last year of my university, and I was about ready to move to Japan. And to again, to date me, I bought the the Crow. Free first appeared, I believe, in a comic book called Creeper or Creepy or something like that, as a kind of one story in several. But then it got its own in a little publishing company called Caliber Press. It made its own debut, and so I mean, I have all the original first edition, first print of each issue of
Man.
the comic. Yeah, and I bought them, in a little comic book store, when they came out. I didn't back order them or anything. I bought them as they came out, and it was horrible because they didn't come out like every month. You'd get one, and then like three, four. So I mean, there was no ending, and then another company bought it, I believe Tundra, and they republished them in kind of like, I think like they combined two issues into one kind of a trade paperback of sorts, and then they republished those, which of course I bought those just to support them, and then finally I got the end of the story. But yeah, so the Crow is one of the reasons. And when I first started working at Davis Films, we were working with a producer called Andrew Mason, who was one of the producers of the original Crow film. He was producing on Silent Hill, and I learned a lot from Andrew my first year at Davis Films. And then I mean, obviously I've always been a fan of Tony Todd, and obviously he was in The Crow, and so I've heard a lot of stories from Tony about what happened on the movie set, and from behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
So both wonderful stuff and bad stuff. But it was kind of funny because one time, one of our for Sushi Girl, one of our investors had just bought heavily into a gun manufacturing company, right? And he was super excited, and so he brought a bunch of real guns in the trunk of his car to our movie set.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just excited. He doesn't, he was one of the money guys. He doesn't
Yeah.
work in film,
Yeah.
so he's just excited, and so suddenly I hear from one of our PAs that so and so just is like pulling cast and crew to the parking lot to show off guns.
Show off guns.
And I'm like,
Jesus.
no.
Oh my God.
So the producer's job yet again is putting out fires and babysitting. So I had to rush there and like let him know. And it's probably one of the
Oop. Lost him for a minute. Neal, you still there? Oh no. Ah, crap. Please pause for station identification. We lost Neal. Not sure where he went. Oh no. Where'd he go? His signal, I think, was sputtering a couple of times there. Okay, well, I guess so while Neal's coming back in, yeah, it's the deep state. So the reason that what he was talking about is so horrible. If you've never seen The Crow, because like if you're younger, tell us. He was about to tell the secret of Brandon Lee's death. Well, and so here's what happened. Still is horrible, and like this was this Brandon Lee's death was due to a due diligence thing that did not happen. So when you have when you're on set, obviously you don't have live ammunition. That is not something that you're supposed to do. And this is one of the reasons that you're not supposed to do it. So, fake bullets, anymore. There's different types of fake bullets for film. There is, and a lot of times, if you see like somebody firing with like a saw or something, and you see the bullet shells flying out, if there's a close up of them, you can tell as they fall, you'll see crimps in the end, which if you've ever used a ram set or if you've ever fired a starter pistol, like for track in high school, or if seen any type of ammunition, the bullet casing, the shell, is what you don't change that. You still use the same like brass casing for ammunition, but instead of having a bullet in the end is crimped. So that there's just the primer and the gunpowder so that you get the bang, but there's no projectile. When there are fake bullets, like you can't... When the casing comes, it has the primer already attached to it because it's crimped in the end. So when you fire a bullet, that circle in the middle, for those of you that are not gun savvy, is the primer. In the back of the bullet, when you look at the back, there's a circle and then there's a smaller circle. And when you fire a bullet, you see where the firing pin hits that primer. And afterwards, the bullet is gone. It's just an empty shell. So if you ever see an empty bullet casing, you pick it up. It's an empty hollow cylinder with a back to it. And on the back, there's those two circles, and you'll see where the firing pin hit it. You'll know it's a spent casing. When you make fake bullets for picture, so that you can see that it looks like a real bullet, there's a round in there with no gunpowder, but the primer is still there. So if you have to have a scene where you load a bullet, like spin it, turn, and fire, the bullet is not going to fly out the end because it's just the primer, but it will leave the casing, and that slug will sometimes get lodged in the barrel. That is what happened. They used that gun and used a primer casing with no gunpowder to fire for a shot. And then they loaded it with blanks so that bullet was still in the barrel, and they put a blank in that actually had gunpowder. So when it went off, it still fired a bullet. Now, if you're just firing blanks, the rule of thumb is that you don't aim in line. So if this is the gun barrel, I don't aim at the person. I'm aiming slightly off because there's enough, like there's no bullet, but there's still enough force that you will feel it when it hits you. Like it is a small condensed. If you ever used, oh no, Neal says he thinks his internet dropped out. Oh no, let's try and reboot our modem. I'll be here. It's just like a movie set. Something happens and you got to roll with it, roll the punches. Like, it's funny because a lot of times as a producer, Neal would probably be on top of this while everybody else is still working, trying to get a problem fixed. Like, say there's an actor that doesn't show up. The producers would, hey, there he is. Weird. Of course, yeah, of course the phone. Well, you had dropped out. Hang on one second. I'm seeing that see here. How do I want to do this? Studio. I need to reset your frame. No, I was Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Solid. Let's see here. Properties. I need new link. There we go. Now we should be back. Yeah, now he's back.
Okay,
right,
that
cool.
was rough. I'm like suddenly you disappear and I'm still talking and I'm like, what just happened?
It's okay. Yeah, sometimes that happens with you were kind of cutting in and out a couple of times, so I was like, I wonder if that's because I checked the actual feed to see if it was coming through, and it did the first time, and then the second time it wasn't, and then you froze again. I was like, oh man, I think he went. But yeah, no, we were talking about.
We were talking about the crow, right?
Well, no, we were talking about when they showed up with the guns on Sushi.
Oh my God, yes, that is a crazy story.
And I was filling time because I was telling them what the difference is about what happened with Brandon is they used a fake bullet that had a primer with no powder, and the bullet lodged in the barrel, and then they put in an actual fake round. So just to finish that off, so like when you're firing a gun on set and there's blanks loaded, and they won't even be a full load, there'll be a half load or quarter loads a lot of times, just because of ear protection. A lot of times you're on stage, so you don't want to fire a round in the stage because it's an enclosed space. There's so many people, so they'll use half loads or quarter loads. So when you do that, you don't aim on line. You'll aim offline of somebody, and they'll put the camera at such an angle that you can't tell that they're aiming.
Yeah,
offline.
they're cheating.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's called cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. So you cheat off. Usually aim for over the shoulder on one of them, because blanks can still be deadly up to about 15 feet. And anytime, say for instance, there might be something there might be some grit or something in the barrel, even if there's no bullet inside the barrel. If there's grit or something in there, or dust,
yeah, I mean, John
fires
Eric
it out.
Was playing Russian roulette with a blank gun, and the wad killed him. I mean, he was brain dead, but another young life snuffed out, for something silly. Yeah. But I mean, I think that, like I said, that is the only time that I yell, and I didn't yell in the beginning, but I got some argument back, a little bit of a good-natured, oh, but we're in the parking lot and it's my car and no one will know. And then I'm just like, no, you could shut down the entire movie, lose all your investment, and screw it up for literally everybody. So, I mean, all it takes is one actor to feel unsafe and report it to SAG. And we were on Universal. So,
God, that's right. Shit, you guys were on the lot.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So I yelled. That was like the first, in the 22 years of me working in film, I think that's the only time I've ever yelled, outside of, hey, what's up? Something happy. Yeah, that was the first and only time that I have ever. I'm not my attitude about filmmaking is not the throwing my weight around or whatever. I was considered such a nice producer that when they made the gag, they want kind of like a gag behind the scenes video. That's I believe it's included in the Sushi Girl extra features on the DVD and Blu-ray. But they had me do a kind of a comedy skit where I'm being really nice. I'm pretending to be nice, and then I fire somebody, and they just they thought, I'm like, are you sure this is gonna play well? Because if you don't work with me, you don't know that I'm not like an act, that I'm not an
Yeah, that
act.
I don't yell. That
Yeah.
I'm. Yeah.
So, but yeah, but it worked. It was funny. I mean, he was hilarious. He had lots of funny skits. He fought like he pretended to follow Andy McKenzie into like literally into the toilet to get an interview with him. I mean, it's hilarious. Like there's so many funny little skits that he did, and every actor was I mean, Sushi Girl was really like a family, and we still wish each other happy birthday, and obviously the pandemic has put things in a different light, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll go out and have birthday dinners and barbecues and still hang out and invite, whenever something big is going on, we invite as many of the Sushi Girl family as we can. And I think it was literally just a few months before the pandemic hit, we did a special screening, and we brought back, I think almost the entire cast. I think Mark was traveling to promote Rise of Skywalker, so he couldn't
Okay.
make it. I think Courtney Palm was in Colorado, so she couldn't make it. But I think pretty much everyone else did was able to make it. So yeah, yeah, that's my Sushi Girl family. I love all of them. So yeah.
So one of the things that I love to do on the show is answer questions, but I like to head off a bunch of questions as well. So I've never been above the line. I've never seen what a producer does day in and day out. What was a typical day for you on set for Sushi Girl?
All right, yeah. So, I mean that's good question, because it really depends on the size of the movie
Yeah.
and everything, uh, there's really no 2 days that are the same. As I mentioned earlier, a producer's job is to predict and put out fires of every sort. So and then obviously it's sometimes it's babysitting, where you just no now
Yeah.
sometimes it's babysitting the other producers. So yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So you know, uh,
Yeah.
and I used to be a school teacher, so I bring my teacher face on set. So yeah. Um, yeah. Tony used to joke around and tease me and call me Professor Fischer. You know, uh, yes, Professor Fischer. Yeah, and it's so funny because when you hear it for Tony's voice, it's like funny, but
Scary.
yeah, it's scary, funny, oddly both insulting, but respectful at the same time. Yeah, it's like yeah, but that's Tony's, the miracle that is Tony. So my day would basically, um, uh, I only need about 4.5 hours sleep. So I would be the first. Usually, I would want to make sure that I was the first or one of the first people on set, which isn't always the case. Producers usually will show up like on the first and last day. They'll be one of the first people, but it really depends on what you're doing. You can't always do your job while you're on set. So at the same time that I was producing Sushi Girl, I was also running all Silent Hill uh, 2 activity out of the Los Angeles office. So I was kind of doing 2 jobs. So I would, but yeah, so an average day on Sushi Girl would be I would show up around 5:30 or 6 in the morning, depending upon what we were shooting at the time. Um, and I would just make sure I just wanted to be there in case anything went wrong. If there was all the luckily most of our permits were all set on Universal, so and the vast majority of the film was shot in what the now gone Fung Lum Chinese restaurant.
Mm.
So I would show up, I would get my honey wagon and start making calls and make sure, everything, go over the call sheet again, go over the daily shots, make sure that we have everything we need, check in with all the different departments, and make sure that everything is running smoothly. They have everything they need. Everyone has showed up. As people start rolling in on their call time, so they'll everyone is called in at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just kind of be there to make sure. So if let's say if someone was missing, or someone couldn't make it, then I would be there to handle that. And that's usually not necessarily a producer's job. That we have other people that are dedicated to that. And on a big film, that you simply can't do that on a big movie. But yeah, I would just check in with all the departments, make sure that someone has been sent out to pick up Mark Hamill, because at the time he wasn't driving, so we made sure that someone would pick him up. Everyone else had their own way of getting there. We had literally interviewed Noah Hathaway like a week before, or less than a week before we were supposed to shoot, because we had to get rid of something fell through with one of our actors that played the role of Fish, and so we did a Zoom, kind of like a Skype Zoom meeting. Well, this was before Zoom, but
Right.
we did an audition
Conference
meeting.
call.
Yeah, over he was in Amsterdam, and we were like, we weren't even sure that was like, is this the real Noah Hathaway? Yeah. So we interviewed him, and he loved the script, and we loved him, and so like 5 hours later, he was on a plane to LA.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, we put him up in the Marriott, like right across from the Fung Lum. So
he wasn't originally supposed to play Fish. Somebody else was.
Yes.
Can I ask who that was, or is
No,
that something we can't share?
not,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fair.
I mean, some things happen for a reason, and I can't even imagine anyone else
Without him playing Fish,
yeah. I mean, it was like, it was a bit of an emergency, and things didn't go down well with one of our cast, and so we immediately shifted gears, which again, that's what producers do. You put out a fire. So put out the fire, and I think it just a bazillion times better with Noah. Noah and I ended up becoming extremely close friends, and so we still I mean, I can't imagine having done anything different. But yeah, then I would always make sure that I was the last person to leave, and because it was such a low budget film, myself, Kern Saxton, who was the co-writer and director, Destin Pfaff, who was also a producer and co-writer, and Søren Saran, we would usually get together after the film was, the day was done, and we would go over what we might have to rewrite certain aspects of the script. We it was we would just have to make sure something didn't work out earlier in the day. You make last minute changes, so we might have to rewrite something. We might have to make some small changes. Andy McKenzie got offered a part on a network series as a series regular, and so they, the agent, like, literally, this was like the day before he was supposed, we had 2 days of filming before he needed to start, but then he was in every single day after that.
Ugh.
And his agent called and said, "Oh, we're gonna take Andy. We need Andy." And I'm like, "Well, you don't get Andy
Yeah.
he's one of a main cast. We can't recast him for, you know, like a 6 a.m. call tomorrow morning. Yeah, you know, we can work something out. So we ended up, they wanted him for 9 days out of our shoot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? 9 days?
Like,
That's more days than he's, you know, he would be gone more than he's on the film. You know, he's a main character.
yeah,
So
it's 5 people in a
so
room, and he's in the room.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Ugh.
and I'm like, look, I mean, like, you you can't, I mean, you have to understand that I consider Andy friend. I'd worked with him before Sushi Girl. That was why he was on Sushi Girl, was because I'm just like, you know, I shot kind of like a short with him, and I was just like, oh my God, Andy is the man. He needs to be in this movie. Um, and technically, everyone really auditioned. You know, at first we were auditioning everybody, and then, you know, like, obviously Mark Hamill and Tony Todd, Duvall, they don't audition. They have a large enough body of work that you kind of know what's going on. But
Right.
so Andy was technically, even though I think Destin and Kern had written the role of Duke with Tony in mind, Andy was technically the first person cast of the main cast. But yeah, I mean, so you know, I'm like, oh, you have to believe me. Nobody besides Andy wants Andy to get a series regular more than me. Not only because I love the man, but also, I mean, if he's on a popular network show when Sushi Girl comes out, that's immensely good for a little movie,
Yeah.
you know. So I want to work with you, but, you know, oftentimes, like, you know, the big studios and the networks, they're like, well, we're big, we can tell you what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, just because I'm a producer on a tiny little movie whose budget is like, you know, barely over, you know, at the time it was, I believe, 230,000 was the budget of our movie at the time. Like, just because I'm a producer on a tiny little indie movie doesn't mean I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I run Davis Films, so I work with a producer that's way up here. I run his stuff. I know these games, so we will work with you. You know, but, you know, you don't get him for a week so he can ride a horse in Wyoming. You know, I mean, no, you know, no, you get it. Yeah, so we worked it out, and but that meant that we had to change the schedule because we had to take him out of production for 2 days. We had to come, you know, I mean, in a film, you have everyone scheduled very specifically to maximize your time, you know, you know, on your locations and everything. Now, luckily, since the vast majority of the film was in one room, we had a little more leeway than most other movies would about making last minute adjustments like that. You know, we're like, okay, so what scenes is Andy not in? Can we push those, you know, to certain days, and put them all together so Andy could be gone 2 days? So Andy came in, shot half the day, you know, and, you know, then we raced him to the airport, you know, directly from set. So he had like zero sleep. But again, luckily, you know, since he was the first cast, he knew that script up, down, right, left, all over, as well as the writers did. So, you know, he was able to come back, you know, and just like comes almost straight from you know, from Wyoming straight into our movie set and start filming right away.
He's a pro.
So, oh, no, absolutely. I worked with him on another short where he learned something like 180 combat moves with a sword. He was a swashbuckler, like a pirate, and so he's working, you know, with he had like 1 day to learn all these moves with our stunt guys, and holy moly, wow!
What
Talk about just,
was
yeah,
that?
amazing.
Was that the short that you did?
No. The first short was a project called Shotgun Diaries,
Okay.
and which never aired. It didn't come out, but we're still developing it. I'm developing it with John Wick, which he's a legit, like a writer, game writer, and creator. He's won many awards at in the gaming community. He's a gaming legend in that he created 7C, co-created Legend of the Five Rings. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I mean, he's extremely prolific in the gaming world.
Yeah.
So we're developing that property still.
That's awesome.
And then the other one was for 7C, which 7C got bought by a company, and so that basically we're like, okay, I mean that when it was John Wick's property, we were gonna do something with it, but when it then sold to a bigger company, we're like, okay, it's not ours anymore. So
for those of you just joining the stream, we're not talking about John Wick, the fictional character of the movies. We're talking about an actual person named John Wick, who's a writer.
Yeah. Who's we're like, we were born 6 days apart.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
That's awesome.
4th, and he was born December 10th, but in the same year. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, your story about Noah reminds me of, I think it was it Dougray Scott who was supposed to play Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings movies, and I think they cast him. They thought he was a little bit too young, and then they went and hit up Viggo Mortensen for it. And like, I can't imagine somebody else playing that role.
I can't either. Yeah.
He's so good. And the whole reason, if you guys haven't watched all the behind the scenes stuff for Lord of the Rings, like me, because you're not a huge nerd, the whole reason he said yes to that project was because he didn't know anything about it, and his son had read the books, and he's like, yeah, they want me to play Aragorn, and he's like, Dad, you have to do it.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay. So he read the books, and
Here's an interesting story with Sushi Girl about that. So, so we got this.
Oh, okay.
We thought Mark was too big. We're like, Mark would be perfect, and we hired him because
he was amazing.
Because of his Joker stuff, not because of Luke Skywalker. We're like,
his voice,
and we're like, hey, I mean, we love him. We've seen his other stuff. He needs to be in front of the camera more. He's such an amazing talent. We'd love to have him, but he's very happy. He was very happy to do voice work, and he's a family guy, and he's not driven by what a lot of celebrities are driven by. He loves working, and so we wanted to hire him, but we're like, we're a tiny little movie. We the money we could give him is insulting, and but we've got Tony Todd, so we can Tony Tony loves the project, and he was one of the executive producers. He just lent his name and came to our meetings to pitch with us. So Mark read it, and Mark turned it down initially. He's like, this is just crazy, violent. It's he's like, I can't do this. I don't agree with this. This is who wants to watch this? And his kids read the script. And so, as the story goes, Mark, of course, Mark will tell it better than anybody. But he's like, so he's at breakfast with his kids, and they're talking, and his kids, and he's talking about Sushi Girl and how he's not going to take it. How he's already turned it down. And I think either his daughter Chelsea or one of his sons was like, Dad, you have to take it. He's like, oh, it's too violent. And there's bad language in there, and Mark literally is that nice. The words he would not want to say, and then Tony be like, no, you can say that. I said you can say that. But Mark is just such a nice guy that so he's like, I can't do it. And they're like, look, Dad, you're always complaining that that Steve Buscemi is getting all these awesome on-camera character roles. He goes, and you're not. And he's like, this is it. This is. He goes, if you want, this screams Steve Buscemi. You have to take this movie, or otherwise you can't complain about it anymore.
That's awesome.
He reread it with a different, kind of from a different perspective, and he was like, okay, I can see what they're saying now. And it is, like whenever friends want to watch the film, and if I know a little bit about who they are, I'm like, okay, this is a hard R movie. It's not for kids. It's a slow burn. I'm very proud of the movie, but it's not for everybody because, it's not like a Marvel superhero movie. It's hard hitting. The violence in the film is made very specifically so that you feel it. So there's an impact. It's not, like people are like, oh, it's torture porn. Like, no, torture porn you can watch and laugh at. Like one of my favorite comments after one of the screenings was someone came out and said, that was the hardest movie I've ever had to watch, but the most rewarding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. It's because, certain scenes are really difficult.
They're rough. Like they are like, oh man.
And again, it's intentional.
I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but like when a sock comes into play, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is just fucking rough.
Oh, and it's so interesting because so many things, like after our movie came out, and as soon as the trailer dropped, Jeff Fahey started getting, like was hired in roles very similar to what he did in the movie. Mark Hamill started like his career just started exploded, in like on like guest starring roles on popular TV shows like Chuck and it was so funny that
he was so good in
it. The trailer, people were like, oh, Andy started, was going into interviews and like we saw Sushi Girl. Like it wasn't even out yet, and Andy's like there was so much buzz about Sushi Girl. He's like, people are like talking about my role in Sushi Girl, and they haven't even seen the movie yet. They've only seen the trailer.
That's awesome.
So,
lightning in a bottle, man. I've talked with I've talked on this show before. Oh, Ken, thank you. Yeah, Stuart Townsend was the original Aragorn, not Dougray Scott.
That's right.
Stuart Townsend was, and right. Yeah, good looking out, Ken. Yeah, and they thought he was too young, so that's why they went to Vigo.
I agree. Again, I can't see anyone else but Vigo in it, and yeah, so
the oh God. I'm reminiscing about all the stories I've heard about that. I got to have lunch with Sean Astin once because of a project, and we talked a little bit about just the cast from that movie. And he's like, "Yeah, no, they're all family. Like one of them is a godfather to my youngest daughter."
Uh-huh.
Like it's just that's the way it works, man. Film sets are like one of my longest running things. In the industry, I was an additional PA on Criminal Minds for the last 2 seasons.
Wow. Okay.
And that crew, they've been together for 14 seasons. Like sometimes it was stupid. Sometimes we wrapped before lunch because if we were on stage, everybody was like, "Yeah, okay, we're lighting the plane, get in there, up. Not more than 3 takes, just running through stuff." I'm like, okay. We're done. Let's go. Because everybody
in a
knew
TV
everybody.
Series, TV series that can happen. Because in a studio like that where you've got a couple dedicated sets that lighting can be minimal, and if everyone knows how to work together, very rarely does that happen on a movie set. But
yeah, it's true. Unless you pull together people you've worked with before. Like when we did Clown Town, like we were all like we knew each other. We hadn't really worked a whole lot with each other. We did a couple of shorts, but like I brought my buddy Ken. He was the DP on. So like when we went into Toy Box, like there was already a cadence that we had, and so we were able to chop that or to knock that movie out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, Clint Eastwood is famous for having a sushi, a filming family. I mean, and some of them are even second generation.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, where the kids, like his one of his cameramen has a son who now also works, on Clint Eastwood movies, and same, I believe, catering or whatever. I mean, I don't know now, but certainly I was friends with several people that worked on as part of the Clint Eastwood film family, and it didn't matter whether they were filming in Cape Town or here in LA. Yeah, it was the vast majority of the people were part of that family.
Yeah. I remember watching behind the scenes stuff on Super 8, and the kid wrangler that was the PA in Ohio, like when they left and moved, all the parents were like, no, you have to bring him with us. Like he has to be, we don't want anybody else. I actually got to work with him on I think it was on Lucifer, when I was an additional on Lucifer.
Oh, Lucifer! I
Was it
love that show,
Lucifer?
and a very good friend of mine is Chris Rafferty, who is the
Nice.
story editor and one of the writers, and yeah, what a wonderful guy, and that's kind of I mean, I'm so happy for him. There's nothing really sad about it, but remember I was talking about Project Shotgun Diaries, so
Mm-hmm.
right before Chris got into the WB writing workshop program, he and I were working together, and he was going to be kind of I was going to be the showrunner of a project called Shotgun Diaries, and he was going to be one of our head writers, and because he had written, I mean, he's just an amazing writer, and he had written a script for Walking Dead. Literally, it's the best Walking Dead script I've ever read. I'm not. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the comic book, but less of a fan of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not to knock it, there's some wonderful things about it, and an amazing cast, and it's obviously it's so difficult to bring, because that's my job, is developing properties from comic books, video games, novels, other medium, and bring them into live action film and television. That's my
Mm-hmm.
specialty. So I fully understand the difficulties, the hurdles and so I have mad respect for the people that make Walking Dead. But yeah, I mean, Chris Rafferty's Walking Dead script blew my mind. I mean, like, it was just such an amazing piece of writing, and so we were gearing up to work together, and then he's like, okay, well, I just got accepted into the writing program, and I'm like, okay, and we're like, okay, he was just assuming that he would just be one of the guys, and that he would go into the writers program, and a couple, 3 months or whatever later, he'd come back, and I would still be developing the property, and he would join me. And instead, he got hired right out of the bat to work on the Flash. And he's
Awesome.
like, dude, I really
Awesome.
want to work with you, but it's the Flash, but it's the first year of the Flash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, great, dude, I'm so happy for you. Go. And then I think he worked in the Flash 1 year, and then he moved over to Lucifer and has been with Lucifer since the very beginning. So,
And that shows in, like, how many
he
seasons
just
has that been
felt like,
running?
literally, he's filming the episode he wrote, which is going to be the last episode he wrote that will be filmed. I mean, this is the final season. They're making the final season right now, and I believe I just saw on Facebook his post that, like, they're either gearing up or they're currently filming his episode that he wrote. That will be the last episode of his writing. I mean, obviously they have more episodes to film, but it's a big deal for him, that the last episode that he wrote will be filmed like right now. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it really is such a small world. Like, I can't really go onto a set now without knowing at least one member of the crew. If it's grip or electric or
yep,
PA
yep,
or the AD team, like it really is a small world. Once you get into it and you start working, like
yep.
it's again, and I've said this on here before, like people work with who they like before they work with anyone else, and then
Well, and
they
I
work
mean,
with people
and
that they
there's
know.
so obviously nepotism is a big problem, in my
Yeah.
opinion, in the film industry, where people get hired. Like, yes, race is an issue, gender is an issue, but uh, you know, when I talk politics, nepotism and classism, I think are, for me, the bigger issues. And at least in film, nepotism is huge, where people go, oh, why is so much crap made? I'm like, well, that's because the daughter of the studio head wanted a part and she got the part.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
mean,
she
it's
has
like,
no acting ability whatsoever
yeah,
because she has
yeah,
no
yeah,
craft to
yeah,
speak of.
yeah, exactly. And so, there are wonderfully gifted people from entertainment families that truly deserve everything they earned. But there's also a lot of people that are hired for, because they're friends. I mean, I on the first project that I ever worked on in production was a film called Brother. It's a Beat Takeshi film about a Japanese yakuza moving here to the U.S.
Oh wow.
Which of course fit me perfectly,
Yeah.
since I lived in Japan for 4 years, and my best friend in Japan was part of the mafia.
Oh
So
wow.
I had lots of interesting experiences there. But so yeah, so I wanted, as soon as I heard that Beat Takeshi was making a movie in the U.S. about the yakuza, I was like, I have to work on that film.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my Japanese connections. I do have connections there, and I got an interview. And I really didn't have any practical producing experience. I'd worked as a casting assistant. I'd worked as a manager's assistant, and then as a manager. My Give me the opportunity to manage some of the lower end clients, to kind of train me. So I had done management, but I hadn't done any actual producing. So I was just a PA, but still, it was an office PA, and I would be one of the first people hired, and I'd be one of the last people to leave. And I was brought in, and I realized that I was brought in by the American. So there's the Japanese production and the American production, and there's a co-production. So the Japanese production were the ones that said, told the American production, we want you to interview Neal because I speak Japanese. I know Japanese culture very well. It's kind of my specialty.
Yeah. It's your bag.
And and so yeah, so the Japanese production office said, we want you to interview Neal. And I was interviewed, and but I was only brought in because of their request. And then they paraded me in front of the Japanese producers who were having a meeting with the American producers, and the American line producer and the Japanese line producer were having some very heated discussions, and they couldn't communicate with each other. All the Japanese producers could barely speak English, and none of the American side could speak Japanese. At the time, there were obviously other people were hired, but at that time, there was a really bad. Everyone was trying to speak English, but it wasn't clear enough. And so I was brought in, and I was basically just paraded in there so that they could say, "Oh, see, we're really trying to hire someone who's multilingual and understands the culture." But they really had no intention of hiring me. But their mistake in parading me was the head Japanese producer said, he goes, okay, Neal, Neal, and he starts speaking to me in Japanese, and he basically says, okay, Neal, if you can can fix the problem between the our line producers, you're hired. And so I'm like, deal. So then I explained to the American side what he just said, and we all, me and the two line producers, went to a private room. We ironed things out. Most of it were misunderstandings, like linguistic, like a lack of communication rather than actual problems. But the Japanese side were the primary, they were kind of the bosses, so they had to acquiesce. Anyway, so we went back in the room and the problem was solved, and the Japanese producer says, you're hired, come back for lunch. So while that was great, the American production side hated my guts because they had their friends they wanted to hire and now they couldn't. Yeah. So it's like literally every day they were trying to find a reason to fire me, the American side. So yeah, it was very stressful because any tiny mistake they were trying to find, but they had to find a legitimate excuse to fire me because the Japanese side wanted me. So yeah, it was like, hey, when you're thrown into the fire, you learn quick. I can't hear you. Try again. Yeah, no, I can't hear you. Yeah, now I can. Okay,
Yep. Good. RTX crashed. That's what happened.
Okay.
That happens at such inappropriate moments.
And I was like, wait, do I have it on mute? This is.
So I have a question off of everything you just said. I had a question I wanted to ask you. So, being a PA, did you ever work on set, or were you strictly an office PA when you did it?
No, I've done it all. I mean,
okay, that's what I thought.
I've worked on set as a PA. I've worked, and then I also, on my own small projects, I will, even though like I might be funding it, I might be the head, the head producer, showrunner, whatever it is of my project. I will, if the PA
something needs to be done,
something needs to be done, I'm carrying boxes. Something needs to get done, it's like, okay, we need lighting set up. You tell me what I'm doing. I don't care.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal is getting the project, so, like I was producing Maze Arcana with Satine and the team. And, I was the first person, we were filming at Fonco. Fon gave me the keys. I opened the studio. We set the lights, set up everything, and I was the last person to leave and close up shop.
I'm the same way. Like, I like to help out a lot, but as a PA on a big show, you can't do that because you're not allowed to touch anything.
On Union,
but as a producer, you can be like, "What do you need? I'll help." Like sometimes on a fly.
Union set, you can't even move a cord.
Yeah.
You could cause an incident. I had to deal with that as a producer when someone else moved a cord and one group, one team got upset with the other team because some cables were moved.
That's called a grievance, everybody. That's what that is when that happens.
Yeah.
I have caused such incidents. Nice. Oh yeah. Yeah. I got those mixed up because Dougray Scott was originally supposed to play Wolverine. That's where my head was at.
Uh-huh.
So my question to you is, you know how like PAs will divide up work, like somebody will be in charge of first team, somebody will be in charge of like the key set will be on set. Maybe there'll be a base camp PA, like they divvy up the work. If you're on a larger team as producers, does that same thing happen? Like, will producers be in charge of certain things, or does everybody share everything?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it depends on a bigger project, and some projects you'll have like a dozen producers on a big
Mm-hmm.
project. Some producers are just producers because they found the money
Right.
and don't really, and they want to have a say, but they don't really know
Know what they're doing?
filmmaking. Yeah. So yeah, and then so there's all different levels of producers, and obviously that there's assistant producer, co-producer, executive producer, producer, so there's all these different types.
Can you
Um,
break down what those types
no,
do?
no, no.
Fair enough.
Those are titles, and so and also in film. I mean, it's just that's a long lesson. That would be a really long discussion because film is one way, television is another way, animation is another way.
Right.
So there is that there are some so just in general when you talk about a producer, it could be assistant producer, co-producer, executive producer, co-executive producer, producer. I mean, it could be any of those things. And then you got showrunner, who's also the executive producer, and so on and so forth.
Right. Right.
But to answer your specific question, if you're talking about on films, producers tend to specialize in things. So, like on Sushi Girl, we were technically all producers. Kern, who co-wrote and directed it, he was also a producer. But once we started, so before the film started, we all were producing it equally. All trying to find the money. We ended up rewriting. The four producers sat down and we effectively rewrote the entire script as a team. I mean, I was probably you know, the most pain in the ass because of my experience in Japan, and I'd be like, well, that's not Japanese, that's this, and so there are things in there that we had to do that I'm like, well, it's not Japanese, so make sure that Mark Hamill says the little Ming Dynasty, when Tony's like loving Japan.
Right.
So so there are things that we threw in there to make sure that there was cultural authenticity. And there was there were some parts of the script where like they had Googled something, and they're like, oh, we read that was a game in Japan, and I'm like, no, that's not a game in Japan. That's insulting to Japanese people. We're not gonna have that in the movie. We can do something else. Here is what actually, like this is something we could add in that is in Japan, and so we rewrote the script, but then once we went into true pre-production, I said I want Kern to not be producing it at all. You need to focus on directing, right? I don't want you to deal with producer shit because it's going to pull you out of your creative, your director side, and there's too many things. So yeah, so I was the producer, one of the practical on-set producers, but I'm less good with like legal and financial paperwork.
Okay.
So Surin focused on that stuff, the accounting, the legal documents, and the legal agreements, because every single person has to have a legal agreement with and when you're talking about cast, there's agents and managers, and there's versions passed back and forth. And while I would look at those and I would comment on certain things, there was Surin was the producer that focused on those things. I'm a creative producer, so I focus on the script, production notes, the practical, on the stuff that's happening on the set. I focus a lot with the cast, developing the property to ancillary. So like, do we want to make a comic book out of this? Do we want to, what? How can we expand this brand? Uh, and then I was the producer in charge of all PR and marketing.
Okay.
So I basically created our and obviously Kern was also because he was the director, he was the visual look of the film needed to expand, into any PR and marketing. And we all contributed, we all had our specialties. So, in that sense, I'm the one that got us into all the conventions, and my connections with San Diego Comic-Con, and my connection with with the new Kamikaze,
yeah.
with Fantasia Fest. So all those things really, I kind of created the PR plan, and then at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I can create the plan, but I can't execute the plan without a PR rep, because I don't have on my Rolodex, I don't have all the the trades, the people who I know, some people in the trades, but I don't, I can't set up dozens of interviews while I'm also wrangling our cast and crew, and I needed to hire someone proper. So, but I had relationships with different companies, and Annie Jeeves came in and was just fantastic, and did really knocked it out of the ballpark. So we were treated, we were down at Comic-Con and other conventions, but Comic-Con obviously is the big one. And our year, we were the fourth most talked about film, at San Diego Comic-Con that year. I mean, so we're going up against Conan and Captain America and and Cowboys and Aliens, and those are studio movies.
Yeah.
And there were other studio movies. I mean, we were talked about more than Final Fantasy. I'm sorry, more than Final Destination. I mean, it was funny. Tony was like,
Tony was told me that yesterday. Yeah.
Tony was like, well, the producers of Final Destination are saying, Tony, please talk more about Final Destination than Sushi Girl. So, but yeah, so I mean, it was crazy how much the buzz for Sushi Girl was, and funny story there. So Mark Hamill, as you know, is a huge deal at conventions, and there's a big concern that Mark's wife, Mary Lou, who's an amazing. I love Mary Lou to death. She basically acts, as Mark's manager, whether he has an official manager or not. The real manager is Mary Lou, so everything goes through her.
That makes sense. My wife is my manager as well,
and for good reason. I mean, Mary Lou is. I mean, she's she cares, she's compassionate, and she knows her stuff. She's been with Mark since the beginning. Since really early on. So, so there were concerns about security because Mark, can't really walk through the convention floor without getting, just crowded,
bombarded. Yeah, I can imagine.
And so Mary Lou told me that that they wanted to avoid certain things that we needed to do, because we had a panel, we had a booth, he was signing, we had, we had interviews all over the place, and she was really worried about security. And I was like, well, we don't have the budget to hire a high-end security firm that would have 3 or 4 big professional security dudes to escort Mark around. I mean, that budget, we just don't have that budget for a promotion. But I was like, okay, but I have an idea. And so we had hired, because I'm old, I've been to Sushi, I've been to San Diego Comic-Con. I know what works. I know the mind of the geek, because I am a geek.
Right.
And I was like, what we need to have 12 of the hottest girls we can find wearing Sushi Girl t-shirts and walking around with gun holsters, that in one holster are our, like the Sushi Girl promo card, and the other one were Sushi Girl chopsticks that you could hand out and promotional, but usable chopsticks.
Yeah.
And I said, so what we're gonna do is
Misdirection.
yes,
Yep.
exactly what I did.
Absolutely.
So basically we'd have Mark. We had 12 girls total, and we'd say, there were three or four always at the booth, but I always made sure there were 5 with Mark. And so basically they created a triangle, and Mark isn't necessarily a very tall fella, so I would have, some of the girls were like 5'10", 5'9", 5'10". They're taller than Mark.
Yeah.
So they'd be walking, and all the normal nerds that would normally have surrounded Mark, and Mary Lou explained how one time Mark got trapped for like 45 minutes, like unable to move, and it was like he was like getting claustrophobic, and they was worried about not being able to breathe, and they had like 2 big security guards that were pushing the crowd back, and I'm like, we can't let that happen.
Yeah.
I can't, that's not fair to Mark, and it would really screw up our promotional schedule, because he had, it was like literally every 15 minutes he had to be somewhere else, and sometimes you're,
Yeah, exactly, Eric. You created a hotness wall.
Yeah, I did. That was exactly so. We're walking from the booth through, like literally right through the body of the floor of Comic-Con with Mark, right? Most actors have to wear a mask or something.
Yeah.
Mark was just walking, and people wouldn't notice, and you'd hear like 40 feet back, wait, was that Mark Hamill? You could hear screaming and people trying to catch up to us, but we were already gone.
Yeah.
Because there was this triangle of hot women that all the dudes were looking at first, and so we just exited the floor, and we're walking to one of the other was going to be a televised interview, and so Mark is up there, and one of the girls, it was like a fanatical Skywalker fan, right? Something very respectful, but she was honest about it. And so I have these 5 girls, and Mark is up surrounded by gorgeous women, and and I had our wardrobe gal help pick out the outfits, and so she picked these super revealing like bikini bottoms that I would never have picked that, just because I would have felt that was appropriate.
Right.
But the girls liked it, the wardrobe gal liked it, they made those decisions, not me, but I was happy about it. So I'm walking with Mary Lou and Chelsea, his daughter, like about 5 or 6 feet behind Mark and 5 gorgeous women, and all of their butts are shaking. Their butts, I mean, like you could see, like literally it felt like there's, nothing being hidden. There's a little G string up the middle, and Mary Lou, and Mark is just chatting away. He is having so much fun. He's not looking at the girls, he's chatting with the girls.
Yeah.
Right? And so Mary Lou and Chelsea are behind them, and Mary Lou is pointing at all these asses, right? These hot asses. And she's like, whose idea was this? And I'm like, mine? Right, I'm waiting to get in trouble with Mary Lou. I'm waiting. Just like, wow, what wife wants to have her husband with these? And she goes, brilliant, brilliant. And I'm like, thank you.
My buddy, he's an AD, and he worked on My Dinner with Harvey. I don't know if you've seen it. It's an HBO original movie, and it's about God, what's his last name? It's about the guy who played Tattoo on Fantasy Island, Harvey.
Okay.
Damn it. Well, anyway, Peter Dinklage played him.
Okay.
We were at El Matador Beach, so that huge walk down with the staircase. And he gets down there and he's like, Drew, I need you to go over there with your kilt and look intimidating as possible so we can get him over here. And I was like, okay, this sounds like confrontation. So I was like, so I grabbed an umbrella and I just opened it and held it next to me as we walked down and just blocked line of sight from everybody, and no one saw him. It's like, it's smarter, not harder. That's fucking brilliant, dude. I can't.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, and literally we would walk like from the floor to the Hard Rock. I
Are you
mean,
serious?
yeah, we would walk, and because that was the fastest way. You can't
Yeah.
there's
Straight line.
you know, and so and we had like 20 minutes or 35 minutes or whatever to get to some of these interviews, and the only way to get there would have been to walk. And so I'm just like, all right,
It's
you
like
know,
Flying V. Mighty
football,
Ducks. Let's go.
football. Yep, exactly. Yeah, our linebackers were beautiful women, and they
Brilliant.
knew their role. They knew exactly what they were supposed to do, and I mean they were. And I have to say, I mean, they were just brilliant women they were so smart. They were great on their feet. If someone was starting to figure it out, they would distract. They would reorganize. I mean, they were intuitive, and they literally, yeah. And so we hired them on every project that they could make, and every single one of them got invitations to the premiere. I mean, they were considered just family along with every whole other team. So yeah, and also at the time, Mark wasn't, I mean, we had Mark put on weight for the movie,
Yeah.
right? So that, I mean, people aren't comfortable when they're not the weight they're comfortable with, and so sometimes there was like, one or two or three of the girls that were kind of on camera with him, and it eased the tension. I mean, it made things move fast and smooth, and we couldn't have done it without them. They were spectacular in every way. So
Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, when we were talking yesterday, like that's brilliant. I wearing a lot of hats like you did. Cause I remember you telling me you guys were filming a music video during the shoot of Sushi Girl as well.
I produced and directed a music video. So the at the same time. So my idea was, and again, it's a difference between big budget and low budget. So low budget, you're trying to, I mean, all right. So you always want to maximize what you're paying for. Now, obviously, on a big budget thing, there's unions and studios are usually involved, so there's more chefs in the kitchen that you have to worry about. But on a smaller film, indie project, I wanted to maximize it, and so we had about 12 separate projects listed to do. I mean, I wanted to make a PSA for dog shelters, and Danny Trejo was like, "Hey, I'll be in your film, for next to nothing. But I want to do something for my pit bull shelter." And so I'm like, "Hey, great! I want to do an animal shelter PSA anyway." So we'd communicated about doing that. I was going to direct it, and it was just going to take like 30 minutes. On the day, he was only on set one day. He was going to come in, shoot the scene, and then as soon as he was done, we would whisk him to the side and do a PSA. We had a pit bull and then like another small dog. We had an area that was going to be filmed. We had the backdrop, everything set up. We had he was basically going to ad lib most of it. We had some cards with a few like kind of funny things that he was going to use to kind of segue into. But his filming on whatever project he was on prior ran late. He had only gotten like 2 hours of sleep the night before. Still didn't want to miss it. And he was just like, "I would love to do it, but I now," and he was still on this other project, so he then had to get kind of whisked away, and we're just like, okay, so those things got dropped, but we had 12 or 14 projects planned that were side projects. Some were going to be basically funny commercials funny little bits that we could use for commercials or promotion. the music video that I wrote, it was obviously to promote. I'm like, hey, since we're kind of embracing the 80s and 90s, there used to be like 80s music videos that would come out on MTV before the movie came out. That was really just the band performing, and then there'd be clips of the movie,
Yeah.
interspersed. And I'm like, I want to do that. That's like the late 80s vibe. So there are things that I wanted to do, and as long as they didn't cost any money, we could use, if the beat camera wasn't being used, or what, we did have a behind the scenes camera. So we're like, okay, we'll use the behind the scenes camera. If the lighting, the set, any of the props or anything that wasn't being used at the time. So originally my music video, I was supposed to have a whole day. We were going to be filming in the Marriott, the hotel room scenes. It was supposed to be all day. I was supposed to have access to my masks. I bought like the no masks that are in the movie. We didn't have the budget to buy them, so I used my tax refund money to buy the masks, and I'm like, okay, you can rent them. The movie rented them for the price it cost me to ship them from Japan, because they were made by one of the oldest no mask company in Japan. So they're absolutely legit.
Yeah, they're authentic.
I used my entire, maybe a little bit more, but so I bought the masks. They rented, the film rented them, and I was going to use them in my music video, because they weren't supposed to be in those scenes, but they had to make some changes, and they, and so a whole day turned into half a day. So the masks became unavailable. I had to kind of rewrite the narrative of the music video. There were some other things that didn't work, but I had to take a full day worth of shooting and make it 5 hours, because they were going to use the room that I was using. They had to come back in. So yeah, so it was an adventure. So yeah, I directed and produced a music video for Send the Sages, as well as producing. Yeah,
it's crazy. I from start to fit, like when you started with pre-production to when you were done with post, how long did it take to finish Sushi
well,
Girl?
post took a lot longer than expected. So we got the script. So I was originally brought on. Kern Saxton and Destin Pfaff, they co-wrote the script, and Kern was going to direct. And originally, they wanted to make it like a 15K. Everyone, they would just make it their own. It was basically kind of like a movie to sell, to show that they could do it and sell themselves. And they were going to have all their friends play.
That's
the
what Clown
parts.
Town was for us.
Yeah, and so Kern and I had worked on Shotgun Diaries together recently, and so I was like, all right, well, I love the script, I love the idea of the script more than the early draft. I was like, oh, I love the idea. It needs a lot of work, but if you need a location, I know a couple places. And I said, but for one of the locations, if we do it, we can't. No, we can't. It has to be.
We can't do 15,000.
Yeah. So the budget then became 60,000. And then I showed them Fung Lum Chinese restaurant, and they went back. They loved the restaurant so much, they went back and rewrote big parts of the script. And then I'm like, okay, so, but the deal that Universal was going to give me, they were going to give me, so at the time it was 6,000 a day to rent Fung Lum, and there's just no way you could make a movie. Yeah. I mean, even if it was only 5 days, that's more than half the budget just in the location. They'd have no. So Universal said they would give it to me for $600 a day, but I had to be
10%.
a producer on the film for them to approve that.
Got it.
And so I became a producer, and then once I became a producer, I like to say that I'm kind of quality control. So, yeah, IP integrity and quality control are my specialties, and so I I I told them first that I didn't want to produce a movie where we were just giving the roles to our friends. That if we're going to have an actual budget, yeah, our friends can audition, but we're going to audition people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started auditioning people, and then at that point, some people that were involved and going to be bringing some of the money, they wanted total control. There was a big problem, some disagreement, and basically, Neal came in and spoiled it. So there was a rift. We lost the money. We lost the camera. The guy that had a red camera or whatever, or whatever camera they were using at the time, they left. But Destin and Current were like, we like the direction this is going.
Yeah.
So I kind of did a rough budget, and I said, okay, I think we could make the movie we would like to make if we had 200,000. I think that would be the sweet spot for this movie to do what we want at Fung Lum. Get and again, we weren't talking any celebrity cast at that point. And so we rewrote the script, kind of re-engineered it, and then we interviewed people. Tony then got involved, and we had to basically go on hiatus for about a year to raise the money. We got the money, and then bam. So pre-production, I mean, we had developed so much of it. Actual pre-production was probably 2 to 3 weeks. Building stuff out, and securing our crew and everything. And then it was a 17-day shoot with two pickup days to kind of do reshoots and pick things up, and then post-production could have been much shorter, but when we were looking at the footage that we had, I mean, everyone was saying just how spectacular the movie looked, how big budget the movie looked, without anything being done, without any color correction. I mean, just raw footage. It looked fantastic, and we were getting those compliments from industry people that were professionals at color correction, and they're just like, this is one of the best shot films we've seen, without just raw. And so and we really loved the footage, but it hadn't been edited yet. Now Kern, as a director, is a phenomenal editor. So he not only did he co-write it and direct it, he also was going to edit it. And so I went back to the investors, and I said, okay, there's two roads we can take on this. We can go direct to DVD and not shoot for a theatrical release at all. I mean, it won't look bad on a big screen, but it's not made for the big screen.
For the big screen. Right.
So there's going to be there might be things that if you make it for the big screen, we might need to correct it with visual effects. That jumps the price up a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Especially because we had a fantastic car crash. I mean, just spectacular. But it required, that there was because we crashed the car right over top of the 101. It needed to have like a safety cord so that the car or the van wouldn't fly onto the 101. So and that had to get erased. And again, when you're doing it for the big screen, you erase it in one way, and when you do it for TV, video, mobile devices, you erase it slightly different way.
Slightly differently.
Yeah, and the same thing goes with your when you're licensing music. If it's direct to video, it's one price. If it's video and theatrical, it's another price. And then if you're gonna promote when you promote something for theatrical, you have to have a bigger, more. You're gonna rely more on like video trailers and teasers to promote it. Those, if you're gonna use music in those, you need to pay music for those. And so you basically really we doubled the price of the movie.
Can I pause you right there, Neal?
Yeah.
Can you hang on for 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about the cost of music and what it costs to use music in something, I would just like to say, give a shout out to Norse Foundry, who is doing the music for this show. It is all DMCA free. It is free to play. It is free to use on Spotify. If you are a streamer like me and you need background music for stuff like this, go check them out. They're awesome. I think they have 5 or 6 albums out now. Or is it 7? Eric, is it 6 or 7? It's one of those two. But check them out, Norse Foundry. They're awesome. Okay, back to the show.
Hey, well, thanks for that suggestion, because I'm going to have to check them out, because one of the things I'm preparing to do is kind of go back to streaming Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I really loved working with Satine. I love, obviously, Dungeons and Dragons, and I love storytelling. So that's in the works, and it kind of got put on pause because of COVID, because I was going to do it, in person and live, but now, so I'm definitely going to be looking at different resources. So that's a great resource to have for me.
Yeah, no, they're great. Norse Foundry is great. They have 7. Thank you, Eric. They have 7 albums out right now. They just dropped another one called what the hell is it? It's we started off at 8-bit, not Dwarven Kingdoms. Dude, actually, we were talking about that, Eric. Yeah, Neal, remember that guest spot I was telling you about that might be available for Cyberpunk? Yeah, Eric runs that game. Eric Frankhouse Presents. Yeah, dude, he's totally down. We were talking
Sandor!
Yeah, their latest album is called Critical Botch. But they have they released, you said you haven't had a chance to watch the show yet. So they released an album for us to use on the Cyberpunk show called Cyber Resistance. Our first episode, I lost my fucking hand. It got taken off with the mono whip.
I watched either the second or third episode when you were, I think it's the second episode, because you were talking about your hand. But my D&D night, unless I have like a scheduled event, one of my D&D nights is Monday. So I at 8. So I was able to watch like the first half hour, and I hadn't seen the first episode. And so you were talking about losing your arm, and I'm like, what? Wow.
Yeah, it got cut off with a they got cut off. So I reached my hand out of an elevator, and there were bots all over it, and just a mono sword and just took it right off at the wrist.
Well, I'll have to connect with him, and like I said, it's totally meta, but I love playing this a character called Sandor in any kind of guest role spot. So I was a gypsy vampire hunter, detective in one. I was a Sandor angel slayer in a post-apocalyptic kind of futuristic game called Anasadora. So I'm always kind of like a guy who's good with guns and is very full of angst. He has lots of problems, personal problems.
He should come play on Fender. Shit happens. Yeah, I know, Eric. Yeah, shit happens. Like me. Well, anyway, the whole point of me telling that story again was, so this album they released called Cyber Resistance, third fucking track they labeled Take My Hand.
Great. Perfect.
Like, you assholes. And then the 15th one is Give Him a Hand. So Norse Foundry is somebody that Eric and I work with. They haven't been to Comic-Con yet, but they travel all over the place. They're at Gen Con, they're at MegaCon, they were at PAX. That's who I was working for at PAX.
So you said Norse Foundry, right? right?
Yeah, Norse Foundry. I'll send. I just linked it in the chat, but I'll send you the link when we're done. But if you look them up on Spotify, they've got seven albums you can just play.
I believe. Well, I don't know where they are now, but I believe I have 2 sets of Norse Foundry dice. So
I can believe it. Yeah, they do.
yeah.
They specialize in metal dice, but like they
Yes.
also have like precious metal dice or semi-precious metal dice. They have a tungsten set. Like, their stuff's awesome. They do gemstone.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I've got the metal dice. I'm trying to see. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. I don't have them in an easy to get spot, but yes, I have two sets of dice.
Do they have the Norse runes on them?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
And
the.
yeah, and I believe they are like a dirty gold. I think is the.
That sounds like Dragon Gold or Dragon Horde. What's the gold set, Eric? Is it Dragon's Horde? I think there's one. I think there's one called Dragon Horde, and then there's another one that's something Gladiator. It's like a gold and like a burnished gold set of the, because they have
I mean,
there's the Norse runes on the high side of each of those sets.
It's a dark gold colored set, and I love it. The only thing I don't like about it is I didn't realize that I mean, I love the metal dice, but when I was using a tray, the 20-sider ate up the bottom, like the kind of the mat of the tray. I just replaced it, but still, I hadn't really thought about that. I'm like, okay, regular. I'm glad
you had a tray to use instead of just rolling them on your table, because people will be like, I have a friend who has shattered a glass top from rolling one of the big metal D20s on. It's like, dude, no.
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, they
put something down.
Like ninjas, like their weapons.
Just shrooking or caltrops. Like, God, stepping on a metal D4 will fuck your day up.
Oh yeah. But to get back to we're talking about the music. So the price of the movie, I filmed it. Originally the budget was $200,000, and then I went when we got Mark and Tony and Noah. Well, not Noah wasn't involved yet, but Mark, Tony, James Duvall. When we got like a legit cast, Andy McKenzie. So then we're like, okay, we need to have like a honey wagon. We need to have, we need to have like a, we need to take this up just another step, and so the budget went to 230,000.
Okay.
To kind of compensate for, we knew that if we're going to have those actors in the movie, we need to give them kind of like a promotional bump, so that they will agree to promote the movie after we've filmed it. And so then we were talking about the crash, and we got a couple different quotes, and again, every step of the way I'd go back to our investors and I would say, okay, if we want Mark Hamill and Tony, Tony's already agreed, but he was agreeing to go like just bare bones. I mean, he's like, I don't care if I'm just sleeping on a bench. I don't care. I want this movie to happen, right? But he was just gonna rough it with everybody.
Yeah.
Which obviously people should not expect that from any cast.
No.
And that wasn't our initial intent. But Tony was just like, I'll do it.
I'm in.
I want as executive producer, I will take some hits so that we can up the budget in other places, right? So, and he's local. So, but then, so once we got Mark and the cast started filling out, we're like, okay, we need to give Tony a bump. We need to give all the cast a bump for promotion and stuff like that. So the budget went up to 230. Then we're like, okay, well, we can have two types of crashes. We can have just where like a car hits the van and kind of the van kind of tilts a little bit, but there's no real impact. or we can like have the car like have the car actually crash into the van. And so I said, but that'll jack the budget up another $30K for like a legit crash.
Yeah.
Rather than just cheating and crash.
Mm-hmm.
And so the investors are like, we want a real crash, man. And even one of the guys who's like he was like trying to figure out how he could like cause like, you know, like rig it to have the van flip over instead.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, that might be a great idea, but no, there are specialists that work in film that do that, and 30,000 is what it's going to cost, you know.
Yeah.
So they agreed. So then the budget went up to 260. So ultimately we got to 290, and then for post production, once they said yes, we're gonna do a theatrical run. We want it to get in theaters. We want it to be for the big screen. Then the price doubled, and the price is not just because it's a little film. Some of that budget went into promotion. So I was the investors were like, okay, Neal, if you can take it to Comic-Con, if you can take it to Fantasia, if you can take it to these other events, you do that, and that'll be. So we need to have T-shirts made. We need to have promotional materials made. We need to have a budget for taking a large cast and putting them up in hotel rooms during Comic-Con.
Which is in itself
it's not
probably
cheap.
a huge budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So what? And we were doing that while the VFX was happening, and Kern, obviously, as the editor, he made the trailers. But when you're going to make a trailer, so we finished filming like in, I think, April, and early July was so we had only a few months to prepare. So he was editing the movie, and then he had to stop editing the movie to make the trailer. Big companies will have a trailer company make the trailer for you, while the regular editor is still focused on editing the movie.
Yep.
So all that stuff, it took a lot longer than a normal film because Kern was divided into all these different duties. So so I mean that took it took maybe 6 months or so for the film to actually lock, and then we sold the movie to internationally. So we took it to Cannes. We did sales in Cannes. So yeah, it was an adventure, and definitely post-production took a lot longer than we would have liked. So
yeah, it's funny talking about the trailers. Like, that trailer world is where I started actually doing voiceover, like, professionally. And some of the there's a handful of companies that handle a lot of the big stuff, and I was with one of them. Ignition Creative is that company.
Oh, okay. Okay, the big one that I'm aware of is Trailer Park.
Trailer Park, Buddha Jones. They do a lot of stuff. Ignition is a big one. Motion is another one, and it's all different. Like, they'll outsource to other houses too if they have too much going. Like, because people that I knew at Ignition had worked at Trailer Park and other places, and they all just kind of shift around.
Yeah,
which is funny. But like, if they need something, it's a small world.
Yeah.
Small world. But like, if you need something, be like, hey, I need this done. Or like, if you're doing like, some places only do like, I think it's Blur. Is it Blur that does all the trailers for like World of Warcraft and
I thought they mostly did those in no, actually I think you're right.
Because like, there's some that just specialize in like CGI stuff. It's a big market. So taking time to do your own trailer if you have a limited budget is definitely the way to go. Man, what else was I going to ask you? Well, actually, are there any questions from chat right now? You guys got anything? We're well into starting in the third hour, so we'll take some.
I'll definitely have to finish at 3. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
My cat will She's doing well, right?
Blur is CGI for Blizzard. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, they do Blizzard. They did all the stuff for uh, Old Republic. Um, they're a big house. Um, so going back to like the titles, I know you said you couldn't break down everything, but is executive producer usually like if you are money? Is that where the
Okay, yeah. I
executive
mean, in
title comes in?
film and television are the exact opposite.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so executive producers on. I mean, yes. I mean, anyone that brings money can get some title, but hey, um, yeah. But yeah, so like executive producers in a movie, they're usually the ones that brought that either they own the intellectual property or have they own they have the rights, the license the rights. So like at Davis Films, we have the rights to Resident Evil and Silent Hill and and Vampire Hunter D. So we own those rights. Now if we make the film, we are executive producers, but also producers. But if let's say we don't make the movie, but just let someone else make it, then we might just be executive producers. Um,
Okay.
but
Okay.
on a film, producers tend to be the ones that are actually they have a role in the actual production
The
of
creation of the story.
creation of the film, and executive producers might not. They might just be part of the studio team. um, so there's, I mean, it's almost impossible to label it down, because there are, a studio might say, okay, we want a producer um, that works for us on the movie. And so, you know but yeah, producers in film tend to do practical stuff, and executive producers tend to be the ones that have found the money or found the property. Sometimes a let's say someone brought a big name star to the movie that let's say um, maybe you bring Brad Pitt to a movie, and the only reason Brad Pitt is in the movie is because this one person made that connection. So that person would get, and might get an executive producer or co-executive producer credit based on
Just
the
that,
budget
like a
of the movie.
finder's fee, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Okay.
credit, I mean, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and everything is negotiable. There is no one set thing. It's not like, when I was a teacher so many years in, you're tenured, very structured. In film, sometimes it's based on relationships, sometimes it's based on what you brought, sometimes it's based on what you're actually doing on the movie itself. So, I mean, some people, if you, let's say, like in The Crow, there was a producer that had helped tried to make a reboot of The Crow, like, like a decade ago,
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago, and at Relativity, and was able to get a contract accepted that basically made it that any version of the remake that used any of these elements, he would get producer credit. So even though he was going to do absolutely nothing on our movie, nothing, he would still get paid, and he would still get a producer credit. Yeah, and
I gotta start producing.
And the only way to get rid of that would be to throw out, every aspect that, outside of just basically just restarting with the Crow comic book and starting from complete scratch.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and I can't say specifically what he did in an earlier version, but I mean, I as a development executive can say that that there are projects that I wish I had that kind of contract with, because there are elements that I developed, in projects that I can't talk about, that that cast, uh, you know, is there because of me. Money is there because of me. Uh, Important story aspects, because as a producer, I give producer notes, and I'm like, oh, you can't do that. For example, one time someone asked, when we were developing, when I was working on developing Vampire Hunter D, I was actually asked, does do you really need Lefty? Now, in Vampire Hunter D, Vampire Hunter D is a Dampier. He's half
Yeah.
human, half vampire. But basically, he gets all the cool stuff of a vampire, but can walk around in the day. You know, and and he has a, a, a
Symbiote.
sentient
Yeah.
symbiote in his hand that is extremely powerful, and that isn't just a sidekick. I mean, there's many times where Lefty is the reason Vampire Hunter D survives
Mm-hmm.
or evolves. I mean, it's when he's alone. When he's alone, he has someone to talk to. And I literally had a studio executive ask me, "Do we need Lefty?" I mean,
Yes.
like,
Yes,
yes,
we do.
yes, we do. Yes,
He
there's an
is an
aspect.
integral
Yeah,
part
right,
of the
right,
character.
right. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, it. You can make a half. You don't necessarily have to make Vampire Hunter D. If you want to make a Dampier, half human, half, I mean, we have Blade.
Yeah, Blade. Yeah.
You know, so But if you remove certain elements that are really important to the character, it suddenly isn't that character anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously in Hollywood, uh, a lot of it, and it's not just Hollywood, but buying something that has a built-in audience and large public awareness is important,
Yeah.
right? And but that's where you get some cognitive dissonance with your fan base if you make a movie that's supposed to be about something that they love, and
And it's
and
not
they're
about
going to
what they
spend their
love.
money to see it, and they're going to talk about it online and get excited about it, and then it's completely not at all a reflection of the property. Now, obviously, then you can get into toxic fandom where they feel that they own it, and every aspect of it is contested. And in that case, there's no way that any remake or any adaptation will please everybody.
Yeah.
Because first of all, like comic books and video games, a lot of these characters are not consistent throughout the series anyway. um, but then people like or get attached to characters for different reasons. So, you can't please everybody, but that's why I like to call my job IP. One of my favorite things is IP integrity, the
Yeah.
integrity of the intellectual property. So finding the sweet spot between what is it about the original intellectual property that makes it beloved, and makes it so it has fans. The story, the character, the sidekicks, there's elements that are important, and there's elements that can be switched around, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there are changes you have to make because the story is told differently. Like in Silent Hill, right? Yeah, Silent Hill, you might spend 3 hours in a dark hallway scared shitless. No one's going to go see a movie where all you do is walk in a hallway and open doors for 3 hours, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the medium is different, so there has to be changes. But finding the essence. So, like for example, in Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 2 are very different movies. Silent Hill 1, for me, is closer to the actual feeling of the video game, and I think most players of Silent Hill would say that. Now to the studio, they had a problem because the final act wasn't as narrative. It didn't flow like a regular movie. But that, and it's like, well, but that's because it's not from
A movie, yeah.
a narrative. It's from a video game, and if and again, that's trying to embody the essence of whatever that intellectual property was. Sometimes it's something tangible, and sometimes it's a very feeling based, and but that's my specialty, and that's what I love doing. So
I have one more question. If anybody else has one, go ahead and throw it in chat. But so my question is about, so was Courtney Palm there every day on that table the whole
yes,
time?
almost I mean, I think it was 12 or 13 days out of the 17. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was there any type of for those of you that don't know, one of the big things in that has become more prevalent, as I think it should, is there's a job called intimacy coordination, which is about like making sure, like if you have a love scene, people are they sit down with an intimacy coordinator, they choreograph what's going to happen, make sure everybody's comfortable with it. Was there any, like, did you have to deal with
Okay, Courtney Palm was our intimacy coordinator.
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, in that sense, I mean, it
Awesome.
was she. I
Awesome.
mean, okay, so Courtney Palm, I cannot state how amazing Courtney Palm is. It was kind of her first big movie. I mean, and she, we auditioned. I mean, it was like 90 women or so we auditioned for because I mean, obviously there was nudity involved, and I mean, like one of the other producers, like literally was like, well, we might have a crotch shot, and I'm like, well, we don't necessarily need a crotch shot,
Yeah.
but whether you have a crotch shot or not, she's still legitimately naked.
Yeah.
For 80% or more
for
of
12 days.
Yeah, I mean, and there's just, I mean, so we built the table was specially built for her to to sit in. I mean, it's I still have that table, by the way. So, but it's
Neat.
in a warehouse. Yeah. So, but it was specially built. It was made specifically for the movie, for her, with her measurements and everything. Myself, since I lived in Japan, and I'd been to Numaitori, the actual process of eating off of a person. It's not hugely popular in Japan, but like I said, I used to hang out with the mafia in Japan. So yeah, so I had been to some real ones in Japan, and so, but it's not really it's not as pretty as as you would want. I mean, it's to eat. So it just wasn't as cinematic. So I worked with our artist Manthos Lapis, and I kind of designed the look of how the sushi would fall on her. But yeah, so she was going to be naked the whole time. So we interviewed, first, obviously, most importantly was, could she act? So that was the first part. But it would be silly for us to focus on the acting and then find an actress that could do the part well, but then not be comfortable with, so in our audition we said that there was like kind of the first round we saw audition tapes, and so that was the first round, and then when we were calling people in to actually do a sit down, there were four dudes, right, and we're like, okay, that's so creepy, like four dudes sitting at a table with actresses coming in and reading lines while in a bikini, or whatever. So that's just so bad. There's no way, so
Yeah.
one of the
so many landmines.
Yeah, I mean, and this was 10 years ago. It was already bad, and we already knew that. So we had our casting director was a woman, so obviously she was with us, and we had Rachel Fedorov, Destin's wife, with us as well. So that we just didn't want it to be only dudes in a room,
Yeah.
with and we had them read with their clothes on, and then just at the very end, if we thought, oh, there's this person is a real possibility that to be the role, then we had asked them. They were all supposed to have a bikini under their outfit. So and we also asked them if they were comfortable with nudity. So when we got to Courtney Palm, and she was one of the last people to audition. She blew us her audition tape blew us away, so she was already kind of in the favorites. But agents were, now that people knew kind of who was, some of the bigger names in the movie, they there was some push by agents, and there were that we Penthouse and Playboy, Penthouse especially sent like a dozen of their models, because they wanted that, and
Right.
and of course most of them really aren't. Most
Actress.
of them weren't really actresses, or weren't at the stage of acting to be able to play it with, like and a one-on-one scene with Tony Todd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to be able to play off each other, and I mean, and I don't want to ruin the movie, but there are aspects where she needs to convey elements that it takes an amazing actress to pull off,
You need a craft
because
to do it.
you're opposite Tony Todd.
Yeah.
So she was already she was already one of our favorites, but then in person she blew us away, and we're like, oh shit, all right, we've got to ask this, and we're like, well, how comfortable you, because she wasn't a nude model. She wasn't Penthouse or Playboy or anything. We're like, oh, like she's like she's, she's not. And we're like, so we asked, so are you comfortable with nudity? Her answer, she took off her top, and took off her and stood there completely naked, and threw her bikini bottoms at Kern. So like literally she's like, yeah, and of course we were like, the dudes in the room were like, like we, and she's like, I think I'm more comfortable than you guys are.
That's amazing.
And so it's like, all right, well, there we go.
That's amazing.
And so, yes, I mean, obviously we wanted to have a closed set, but the reality is she's naked the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's not, so we talked to her, and she was just like, I trust you guys, bring in who you think you need. I mean, she, I mean, it wasn't gratuitous. Everybody that we brought in was professional. Everyone knew that it was, and literally after a while, most people just forgot that there was a naked woman on a table in the middle of the room.
Yep.
In fact, when you see the movie, you will forget that as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that is the point of the movie. Part of one of the really important points of the movie is that she'll be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, it sounds incredibly sexist, and that was another one of my favorite comments, that women were coming out of screenings going, wow, I was ready to go off, like, naked woman the whole movie, what the hell. And then at the end they're like, okay, it's approved, I think it's okay. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
And I think
so when women are saying that, I'm like, okay, that. But yeah, there was at one point, I had a young photographer. We had was doing behind the scenes shots, and it was very important. We had a very there were a lot of women working in the crew as well, and that was intentional, and not just because of Courtney, but just in general, inclusivity and trying to, make things more balanced. But so one of the female PAs would not let our behind the scenes photographer into the room she's like, no, you can't, no behind the scenes shots, we have, and so we went and we talked to Courtney about that, and I was just like, well, what do you think about behind the scenes footage? And she's like, just do whatever. She's just like, look, I mean, I don't have a problem with nudity. Again, I respect everybody. If you're not, treating me like, if you're not sexualizing me, then it's fine. And so, yeah, I mean, so he had free reign. He could take shots of her whenever. And obviously we wanted, anytime she wasn't actually in the shot, she could go to her honey wagon and she could hang out, she could do whatever. And sometimes the shot, there was such a short time between two shots that she would just, she's like,
stay there.
I'm napping, just, and the worst thing for her was that she's vegan and and the smell of fish,
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was the worst part for her, was that.
I remember thinking about that, because thinking about the questions that I wanted to ask you, and that was one of them, because I feel like, and again, preface this is two white dudes sitting around talking about a naked woman, but I feel like one of the reasons it worked so well is that the nudity didn't take away the character's power at all, because just as a human and as a person and as the I don't want to ruin the movie, but it's
and and
she's a baller.
That's why I say that it was an incredibly difficult role to fill because of that, and honestly, I mean, the whole point was it was her call at all times, now, from the very beginning, she was the one that set the pace of the nudity. She did it in the audition too, because we were the ones, we were even hesitant to ask her.
Yeah.
It was like,
I can absolutely imagine.
We weren't comfortable. And we're just like, okay, we purposefully have two women with us so that anyone we're auditioning doesn't feel uncomfortable. But still, you have, like you said, 4 white dudes, oh, can you be naked? So that was very uncomfortable for us. And she was just like, she took that, she sensed that we were respectful, and she said, okay, I'll set the tone. I have the agency. So Courtney Palm never lost agency, her own agency as an actress, ever in the movie, during filming. It was whatever she was comfortable with, and most people were giving her they were like, and she's like, look, you don't need to avert your eyes, look, I'm here. We would cover her up to keep her warm more than covering up to for nudity. And again, it was all all her pace, and it was, and I learned a lot from her, I mean, that's how you do it. That was proper, so I have that experience, that even as an experienced producer, that's something that I learned absolutely from her, and I was like, and it doesn't mean that if I were to have to, if that element were in a future film, it wouldn't be I wouldn't do it the way Courtney wanted it done, because that woman isn't Courtney.
Right.
It would be how that woman wants it done.
Yeah.
That woman would have the agency.
Yeah.
So, and that's what's important. Respect, it's like, okay, you upfront in what you need. Also, none of the nudity was gratuitous.
Exactly.
So, you know, I mean, it's like, I mean, I love the movie Swordfish, but did we really need to see
Yeah.
Halle Berry's boobs?
Yeah.
No, that was gratuitous bullshit. It didn't need to happen.
It didn't
It,
propel
it
the
was, it
story at
was
all.
all, I mean, and so that's a difference. Is it an important element in the movie or not? You know, I'm not going to put, you know, in any film that I have control of, I'm not going to put gratuitous nudity in a movie. Now, but I say that also because that's not the kind of, I'm not in in the movie business to make gratuitous sexualizing movies, you know. And some, you know, that is a form of entertainment. That's just not the kind of entertainment that I particularly want to make.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, in that sense, it makes my job easier because I don't want to get involved in that kind of project. Nothing wrong with it. You know, people will have their opinions about it. It's just, it's not my forte.
So the other Eric posed a question: do you find converting video games to movies is something more difficult than converting a book or other IP?
No, each one has their own aspects that are. I mean, you know, obviously, I think um, certain comic books are probably the easiest to convert, simply because you almost have a storyboard, right?
Right.
And
Literally.
so you know, I mean, you know, if you look at Sin City, I mean, holy crap!
Yeah.
I mean, wow! I mean,
Yeah.
that was, or 300. You know, I mean, there
Yeah.
were elements that needed to be added into 300 to add some narrative to certain characters. But yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, I had those the comics of both of those projects long before I ever saw the film version, and wow, yeah. So I mean, in that sense, I would say that comic books are probably, if it's a comic book that is one story. I mean, Sin City is one story.
Right.
300 is one story, and it nicely fits into, I mean, well, I don't know if you've seen the different versions of Sin City. There's a theatrically released one, and then there's a special DVD that basically breaks it down into the four kind of trade paperbacks,
I
and there's
haven't
a
seen that
different
version.
pacing.
I
Yeah,
haven't
I
seen
mean,
that version.
that obviously that version is more true to the comic book because it's literally, one is the Yellow Man, each one is its own, is the comic, is the graphic novel,
Yeah.
right? And so you can't get more true to the source material than that. um but you know, like when you're talking about like what they're doing, like with the MCU, they're taking uh 50 years worth of comic books, trying to pull the essence, pick out the you know, the different storylines. It's kind of like what I did with a Vampire Hunter D. There's 28 novels,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's two animated films, and there's video games, and there's now manga, but the manga is kind of just a retelling of the novel. But what stories are important? What stories are, like when we were doing Solomon Kane, right? What stories do we want to tell? Do we want to tell one of the stories that's already been told? Do we want to tell a new story? Do, you know, how, what elements from these stories do we pull out? So, you know, like in the MCU, they're looking at like, how does all the source material translate into film, and then how can you make it so that that they interconnect the films together?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think, you know, they've done just an absolutely brilliant job in that way. Now, and I've only seen a few episodes of WandaVision, but from what I've seen so far, WandaVision also brilliantly selected the aspects of Wanda and Vision and the other characters, and the time and the storylines in the comic books, and has perfectly brought them in to the MCU, modified them in the right way to tell the story that they needed. Now, again, I've only seen like the first 4 episodes, so I haven't seen the rest. So maybe they screwed it up later. But at this point, brilliantly done, just brilliantly done. And so in that sense,
Wanda's pretty good. It's a pretty good show. I'm enjoying it a lot.
So it all so it has, to me, it has less to do with the medium and more to do with the intellectual property that you're translating. Because sometimes more story is good, and sometimes more story is bad, right? I mean, because sometimes the fans have so much material that they know that you can't use. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, there's aspects of the character that are really horrible and aspects to the character that are really good. So I mean, and some source material was written, in the early 1900s, and what was acceptable behavior, socially acceptable behavior for a likable character in the early 1900s is
not the same now.
A rapist, racist,
yeah.
evil person today.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to justify that behavior. The point is just that if that character's role in that intellectual property is supposed to be the hero, you're going to have to change some things, because that person cannot be a hero in a story of today.
Yeah.
So it's more about, to me, it's more about the source material than the medium.
That's fair. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything you want to talk about, that you can talk about? Anything you're working on coming up that?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I have several projects that I'm working with. One of my partners is Ramon Gouveia, and he's a brilliant man. Has worked in all different levels, also of the entertainment business, and he created a company called Myth Division and brought me in as a partner. I mean, first of all, I just love the name Myth Division.
Yeah.
Because what we're telling, whether it's movies or comic books or TV shows or animated things, is these are the myths, the modern day myths. We are making the Thor and the Zeus of modern time. Mm-hmm. And we're telling stories to people, myths of our generation. So with him, we've kickstarted several projects that were his stories, Menagerie and Boom Queens and Luminous, and they're all just amazing stories, and they've all been very successful Kickstarters, and they've been flawless. Ramon absolutely knows how to deliver comics, and we're developing them into film, TV, and video games. So with that in mind, 2 projects. One I've already talked about, which is Shotgun Diaries with John Wick. We're gonna be turning that into a comic book. We've already got the stories, so it's already written out. We just have to decide what ones are we going to put in the comic book, in what order, how to splice them together, and then what is the pacing of those stories so that we release them properly. So Shotgun Diaries is one, and then my creation, my baby, Samurai Orc, and that's and
yeah,
literally
we were talking about that a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, so that literally about this week has been really a focus on Samurai Orc for me, and that will be one of our next Kickstarters. Will be to kickstart the first issue of Samurai Orc, and I made Samurai Orc almost 20 years ago. I mean, I made Samurai Orc as an inspiration from Legend of the Five Rings into Neverwinter Nights, Persistent World, because everyone was playing the orcs as basically very typical orcs, the very Tolkien-esque orcs, and I'm a huge fan of role playing, And so some people would come in, and then they would go into the area, like these caves, where they had the best drops and the most XP, and they were farming. You know, in the term, in the video game term, you're not there to role play. You're just there to gain levels and get powerful as fast as possible. So
Yeah.
they were farming, and I didn't like farming. And so this was before I was actually, working for Davis Films, whatever. So I was one of the DMs and writers and admins of, I think it was the fourth or fifth largest persistent world on the planet. We had like 18 servers in Sweden, like all linked together. Because at the time there was, I think, only 85 players could be on one Neverwinter Night server at a time. So we basically linked all these servers together, and we could have like 850 players in our world at the same time, which of course now doesn't sound very big, but for a persistent world, in 2001, that was a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I really just started summoning, as a dungeon master. I would summon orcs and have them give them better gear and have them use smarter tactics. And since my specialty is the samurai culture, the samurai era of Japan, I would use samurai tactics in their combat, and it just evolved from there. And then soon players, it originally was just to dissuade players from farming that area, but luckily what they did instead was they started to investigate, why are these orcs using this strategy, and they started trying to discover who. I mean, originally it wasn't even orcs, but their investigations forced me to create samurai orc and that whole storyline. And so from there, I was asked by I had worked for Alderac Entertainment Group, which were the creators of my favorite samurai game, Legend of the Five Rings. And that's how I met and became friends with John Wick, by the way. And so I was working for them, and I was advising them on samurai culture and Japanese culture. I was working for the company to demo their games, Legend of the Five Ring games at different conventions and everything. And again, I was just a peon. I just started working in entertainment business, and I told them someday I want to make Samurai Orc into I want to make Legend of Five Rings into an animated series. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. When you can do that, come back. So once I got hired at Davis Films to run the company, I said, okay, now I can do that. And so I got a meeting with the president of the company, and I pitched Legends of the Five Rings, the animated series. I pitched it, and they loved it, and they loved the idea. And this is kind of an interesting story. So give me 1 second, because I need a prop to tell this story properly.
Oh boy. Okay.
So in the meeting, I'm talking to the creator, the president, and owner of Alderac Entertainment Group, and he says, "Okay, Neal, I've known you for a long time, and yes, I know that you're working for Davis Films, but Davis Films doesn't make animation, and you just started out there. So, why would we give you, the goose that lays the golden egg? Because Legend of the Five Rings was the intellectual property that made them all their money. It was the third most popular, or maybe it was the third most popular collectible card game on the planet at the time. You had Pokemon and Magic were the top two, and then it was Legend of the Five Rings, and it had a ravenous zealot fan base. and so they had role play. It was a role playing game. It was a card game. It was a clan war miniatures game, and it was the thing that
Huge IP.
yeah, and it was
Yeah.
whenever it allowed them to explore and try out different, like 7C and other games, because that was such a solid moneymaker. So he goes, why would I give you our biggest property? Why would I give you the goose that lays the golden egg? And so I said, that's a very good question. So I said, first, uh, and I pull out of my bag this trophy. This trophy is from the year 2000, Y2K. It is the Imperial Favor. It is Neal Allen Fischer, biggest fan. I am, so it's not BS. I legitimately am the biggest fan of Legend of the Five Rings. I have a trophy to prove it. And so I said, I know how the film business works. I know how to make small projects. I know how to make big projects. And the company that hired me specifically makes intellectual properties from video games, comic books, novels, popular media, game and other media into that. So that is my specialty, and I am the biggest fan. So who would be better to take your golden goose and replicate that in animation and film? And so I gave him the pitch, and I mean it didn't ended up not working out. It was just there was too much. They didn't feel it was the right timing. They and so, but I had done all this work to develop it, and I was like, you know what, and while I'm doing that, I'm also playing this video game where I've taken L5R and I've modified it into Dungeons and Dragons, into orcs, and and created unique story and a unique background and unique history for these characters. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, while it was inspired by Legend of the Five Rings, Samurai Orc is my own baby now. I mean, it's completely unique. I mean, no one has anything like it. I think one person at World of Wizards or at Blizzard has one orc that kind of that wears samurai armor but doesn't really have a storyline. But yeah, I mean, so I'm just like, okay, so that's when I created it, and just recently, I a few years ago, I more fully developed it into an animated series. So, and now I think it's just with partnering with Ramon, it's just the best thing to do is to get it out there to the world in a comic book form, because it can then be used to create awareness, have people enjoy the character that I created, the storyline. I mean, my story for Samurai Orc and the world is just as, I mean, if you know the Naruto franchise, I mean, it's just as expansive as the Naruto storyline. So yeah.
Well, Neal, it's 3:02. I know you have to go.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I can't thank you enough. This was awesome.
Hey, well, thank you for the invite.
You answered a lot of personal questions that I had too, which is great. If whenever you have another animated series, call me. I will send you my reel because I am all about it.
Cool. Hey, well, thanks again for having me, and let me know when it goes up on YouTube or whatever, and I'll share that around.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I'll probably export it in the next couple of days, just because I don't there isn't a huge following on YouTube for me. So and anytime I have good quality content like these interviews, I'll want to get it out there. So yeah, it'll
Yeah.
happen in the next day. I'll
So
send you a link.
to all the platforms.
Yeah, exactly. But dude, yeah,
Cool.
thank you again so much. So
Hey, well, thank you, and we'll talk soon, and definitely please connect me with was it Eric who does
Eric,
who runs,
yeah.
yeah, because I would love to talk to him about the cyberpunk
Yeah,
character.
he just said, "Come play on Fenrir. We would be a blast." Yeah, I
So,
think it's a
excellent.
done deal.
Yeah, so just make the connection on Discord or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
And then
hang on, before you leave, what is your Twitch channel? Because we didn't put that up yet, and I wanted to do it live so people could just go follow you.
It's I believe it's Super Neal Twitch. I think I messaged you in Facebook.
Oh, okay. I'll look for it. I didn't see.
I think it's Super Neal Twitch. I haven't put up any content.
Oh, Super Neal Twitch is the handle.
Yeah. I think. Let me look. I primarily used it just while I was producing Maze Arcana. So I didn't really. I haven't put any of my own stuff up yet.
Okay. Cool.
But it, I mean, if that's something that I can share.
Yeah.
My Super Neal _ Twitch.
Oh, that's what I was missing. Super Neal. Yes, that's right. You did share it with me. I apologize.
So yeah, but if that's something I've never really shared anything on my page, but I know that is possible. Like you can share things. So I could share this interview on my Twitch channel, which would it would basically count as your channel, but spread the portals in which they can find it. So
it could, yeah. Yeah, it's the one that I shared, Eric. There's an underscore in there. That's the difference.
But yeah, my plan is certainly to start. Like I said, I want to start streaming. It'll be a virtual D&D game. Where players are everywhere. So and I'm looking to start to do that probably next month.
Gotcha.
So
I
I'll
will
start
say
using
the program that we're using right now, OBS Ninja. That's what we use because Eric is in Milwaukee. He runs both the Cyberpunk show and the Pathfinder 2 game that we're playing. From Milwaukee. Everybody else for this Pathfinder 2 game is local there, and then Adam and Diana and I are all here. So but OBS Ninja is a great way to do that. So
all right, perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. I use for the virtual tabletop. I'm using Foundry. So yeah, I mean, I've used all of them. I mean, Roll20 is, I think Fantasy Grounds is good, but I think Roll20 is probably better for, in general for streaming stuff. So, but I'm really enjoying Foundry. So it's I think it's still in beta, so it's still not official yet. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, I know using Eric says he'd be happy to chat on it because he uses for the scenes that we have, he has all our cameras on there, and then we use Roll20 for the actual game map. He pulls that in as its own source and throws it on the scene in OBS.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, obviously, I would love to talk to him about how that works, but also, I'm excited to talk about Sandor.
We'll chat. I'll definitely hook you guys up.
Cool. So. Hey, well, this has been a fun little break, and as you can see, my assistant was busy here. I mean, she used to bother me until I got the little nest.
Little cat stand.
I
just want to be close to you. Just let me be close.
That's exactly right. So she's not clingy. I mean, she'll come every now and then and sit on my chest for a little while, but for the most part, if she can sit right next to me like this, then she doesn't need that,
my old roommate's cat would come, I'd be sitting here playing video games and he would come sit on my chest because I'd be leaning back and he just put his face right in mine. I'm like, you're in the way. I can't do this.
Yeah, she'll do that about twice a day. She needs the 2 or 3 times the cuddle time. And
Right.
but if I don't have her spot here, that cuddle time suddenly turns into about every 20 minutes. So
That's fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
so it's like, okay, this is the, everyone makes certain uh uh they comply, so she's the boss.
All right.
Cool.
Neal, did you ever go to C2E2 in Chicago?
No, I don't think I've ever
Okay. Eric says, I feel like I met Neal at C2E2, but if you haven't been there, then that's
no, I mean,
not the case.
yeah, I haven't been to the, like, so my family, I used to live in Chicago briefly, and I'm from Iowa. So I used to, but I haven't been to Iowa or the Midwest in probably a decade.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right. Well,
But we may have met somewhere else. I mean, I've got, again, my my circles of friends within the gaming and community is
yeah, it's pretty
just as
expansive.
strong and diverse as in film. So those are definitely, I love the fact that these two worlds have basically collided. In a, it's like if Mars and Saturn slammed into each other and are forming one giant
Right.
planet. So that's where we're at, and I'm right in the center, loving it. So cool.
All right, dude. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
I'll switch back over to the single cam here. If you got to
Okay.
go ahead and bounce, and if not, we can chat afterwards. But either way, I will hook
Yep.
you up with
Yeah. I
everything.
should. I should get going. But
Okay, cool.
take
Thanks,
care.
brother. Yeah.
See you soon. All right. Bye.
Bye. Wow, that was awesome. Neal's a great guy. I've known him for a couple of years now, but we've never actually had a chance to sit down and connect. I always see him where ships passing in the night, either at a convention or something else. So, Neal, thank you again so much for being here. Thank you again to Norse Foundry for the music. Again, if you don't have all that from earlier, go give Norse a follow. They have links down there or just go on Spotify and look up Norse Foundry. You can find their music. Norse Foundry is also the channel that we do our Cyberpunk game on the second, third, and fourth Mondays of the month. It's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that'll be next Monday. Is going to be the third story of us as we are on tour in Miami. If you were unfortunate enough to have joined us on Monday for Miami Connection, I'm sorry. But yeah, I've got a game later today. I'm playing Pathfinder for my normal weekly game with some friends in North Carolina, and then probably around 9 p.m. I'm going to be back on playing some Phasmo. So come hang out, play some cards, help me die. We'll see you then. Strength and luck, everybody. Wear your mask. Be safe. Take care of each other. I'm out. Oh. Wait, one more thing. If you haven't seen it yet, the movie we were talking about, Sushi Girl, it's on Amazon. Go, I think it's a rental, but go watch it. Like, it is a ride. I would compare it to, like, it's God, how would I even describe it? It is, Eric, you're here. It is a Tarantino-esque ride, in some ways pushing the limits of well, no, Tarantino's a good example. I was gonna say the ride is equivalent to Mandy, but I don't know if it's that insane. But it is definitely that intense in some spots. When I say when the sock comes into play, It's rough. All right. Now I'm good. See you later.